Hi there, welcome back to Not Another Budget. I'm Nicole, and on this channel I'm attempting to cash budget my way out of debt and fight several fires and deal with lots of things which most of you have been around for. So thank you so much for the wonderful love and attention you've given my most recent series of videos. Yeah, it means a lot. It's not very often that a little channel like mine kind of gets a video that kind of hits 1,000 views quite quickly, and I've had a couple of them now this month already, and that really is wonderful. So thank you. I wanted to follow up from my last video, having had the rental inspection, which I'm going to talk a bit about at the end, and try and shed a bit of kind of positivity and a bit of kind of a rocket beyond the initial firefighting that I'm having to deal with, and get a bit of a rocket up the backside, because we're in quarter 2. If you're new around here, I don't do big annual financial goals. I do quarterly goals because for me, and as we have seen, if you've been around here for a while, and certainly if you've been around here since 2025 for all 4 months of the year, I find that my plans don't tend to go to plan, and my intentions don't tend to go to plan. Case in point, quarter 2 initially for me being the months of April, May, and June, I wasn't going to be signed off sick. I was going to be in full health, and I would start moving to tackle my debt, having built up a healthy savings pot. And we're not there, sadly. So instead, I wanted to try and drag myself out of the kind of emotional bogged downness of the weeds, and try and give myself a case of, okay, this is the pile of poop that you're in. This is what we know, and this is what we suspect. And there's no reason to not do goals, basically, because we're 2 weeks now, 10 days into quarter 2, and I have not done any of my quarter 2 goals until now. Like I said at the start of this year, I thought my goals would be for quarter 2 debt based. I thought it would be the quarter where I would start tackling my debt and then continuing to build on the savings which I'd already launched for myself. That's not going to be the case. My income is down, so much down that it doesn't cover normal bills and a normal month, of which I need around about £2,000, as I am a solo household, so it is just me earning the moolah. And being down to kind of 1,446 and possibly even less does not do those things without additional income needed. Now, given that I've been in this situation since, in terms of being off sick, since the 28th of January, and so far up until the 27th of April this month, it has shown me that I can derive and bring in extra money. What I need to do is make that sustainable so that when I am back working, I can continue to do that in both a sensible, regular, ongoing manner. The reason why that's going to be helpful is because when my income is back to a normal level, where by itself my teaching wage will just be able to pay my bills and do those jobs for me, if I can derive a stable, regular income, which I build to a certain amount, that money can then be used to weather storms like this that might pop up, or start rebuilding general savings, because whilst I'm good for a 1 month ahead fund, and I'm kind of building a end of life fund for my cat, there are other smaller funds along the way which kind of need to come into play. And I have, touch wood, been very lucky that those haven't popped up as well. And at the minute, while I'm kind of covering and managing everything from a very basic level, it would be good to know that I can derive an additional stable income source or sources that allow me to sit down regularly each month and go, this is how much I'm putting towards my debt, and this is how much I'm putting into savings, or this has popped up and I need to cover it. And my quarter 2 is going to be looking at income. So quarter 1 was a savings focus, and quarter 2 is an income focus. And the reason why, despite everything, I'm focusing on financial goals on this video is to try and give myself a structure to carry forward, a bit like a foundation that I can fall back on when I kind of sit there and go, how am I doing this and what do I need to do? This is kind of roughly in order. So the first one is to get a stable additional £250 per month income. Whether that is through YouTube, whether that is through car booting, whether that is through regular selling on Vinted, whether that is building up eBay, and these two here become a combination of reselling. Obviously, that does require a purchase of, items, which at the minute there's not money there to do that. Or my YouTube itself kind of becomes a bit more sustainable in terms of a regular monthly payout. £250 a month. This is aside from the shortfall that I have for May. So this is me just going, okay, first of all, let's know that I can generate an additional £250 a month regularly. Tied into that is to try and meet the payment earnings threshold for YouTube, which is £60 a month on videos. Now, as long as I continue to deliver regular, emphasis on the regular, so the algorithm picks me up, and good quality content, it is not all doom and gloom around here. I can promise you that. It is certainly eventful. I'd quite like to have a month where nothing overly eventful happens. That hasn't been the case for a long time, and yeah, there's that. But if I can generate those and meet those monthly payment earning thresholds from YouTube, and I can say build that from £60 to £100, that goes a long way in kind of meeting that £250 a month target. Now, for reference, an additional £250 per month on a normal wage month for me, if I earn, say, £2,000, an additional £250 a month is potentially £150 into savings, or it is covering an increased bill increases, etc., that go on there with ease, or it is introducing 2 minimum debt payments, for example. So that's what £250 a month does. It covers something that pops up. It also covers an additional vet appointment that I wasn't planning for, or it makes covering a 5-week month rather than a 4-week month a bit easier. So that's what £250 a month does. And I'm not going to get into the weeds about whether I draw it weekly or whether I draw it monthly or whether I draw it bi-weekly. It's just an additional £250 throughout the month, first of all, would be great. And I feel like with ease at the minute, I can hit that through Vinted. This is without YouTube and anything else as well. Obviously, then meeting the monthly payment earnings builds that. The next step is to kind of grow that £250 per month additional to add actually an additional £500 a month amount. And £500 per month means that, not only can I cover bill increases and the odd unexpected thing, actually I can put £200 towards my debt each month, and I can start to chunk down those smaller consumer debt amounts. Or I can put £100 into savings on the run up to Christmas, and I can build up a Christmas fund. Because if I were to hit, we're in April now, so it's not going to happen in April, so let's say May, and I go May, June, July, August, September, October, May, June, July, August, September, October, and let's say I whacked £100 a month for 6 months aside, that's £600 into a Christmas fund. That's what £500 additional a month allows me to do. Now, at the minute, can I do all of that from Vinted itself? No, I don't really think so. But if I did, say, over the summer, a combination of Vinted, car booting, and I meet that YouTube threshold, all of a sudden, we start to climb up and we start to get there. Finally, it's can I work on growing the £500 a month to actually a stable £200 a week extra? I don't have quite the whys and wherefores of how to do this yet. And this is all going alongside the fires that I'm fighting now. And realistically, within Q2, the month of May and June, if I can get an additional £200 per week extra in across June, then that plugs the income gap that I'm expecting. It brings my income back up to level, which is fantastic. But if that £200 per week is then sustainable going into July, then all of a sudden I can start to recover some ground, because I'm assuming that I'm working full time in July and I will have the full entirety of my wages back. And I can then take that money that I've been growing and started to grow and started to develop, and actually go, right, let's whack £500 into a cash emergency fund. So I have got £500 cash on hand, and let's pay a £500 payment to debt. Or I'm going to have to kind of change how I structure my bills, because there is a lifestyle, my health is having a lifestyle impact in terms of how and when I do things. So I need to tweak these budget categories, and this is how I'm going to do that, for example. The how I grow it to £200 a week extra is something that I need to look at a little bit further, and I do suspect it ties into a lot of what I have going on here. We don't run car boots throughout the year. If you have spent winter in the UK, it's not really feasible, but certainly is there a captive audience for me to sell things in the summer. And obviously I don't know what's happening with the house. We'll get to that in a second. But can I grow the £500 a month to £200 per week? Because realistically, that's not that much of a jump once you break it down. And as with always, I have accompanying notes, because why not? That's why I put a note section in my binder and in my planner. It's always good to kind of have. So starting to, and this is kind of my instructions to myself, as well as maybe a neater way of explaining it if I haven't explained it very well already. So I need to kind of in reality, it started from the 1st of April, because I realised that I needed to plug an income gap. So starting to steadily grow an additional income stream, firstly to top up lost income at the start of the quarter, £250 a month goal. Then increase this to £500 per month extra. We know I have a target additional £500 a month that I want to find in July, beyond what I carry over, and that would take me to May 25. So I am tracking to hopefully get there and hopefully do this, because once we're beyond the rent payment day next Thursday, then actually I know I've got possibly 7 car boots that I can get down to, and I have stuff that I can sell, and that's without anything I do on Vinted and Facebook Marketplace in the meantime. And despite the cleaning and tidying that I have done, I have kind of, since my last video, not allowed myself to wallow and not allowed myself to indulge those just, get under the covers and don't come out again feelings. And I've, taken to Facebook Marketplace and I've dug things out, and I've looked at where actually I can get rid of some things, and that pot has grown a little bit more. So I'm feeling slightly more comfortable that I'm going to reach the amount that I need to for next week, as well as taking on board the fantastic advice that was in my comments, as well as those of you who were just lovely and gracious enough to leave donations across any of my platforms. It means a lot, and thank you. And all of those are going towards, so anyone who left a super thanks or a donation on the video itself via YouTube, I will see that money, and that money has helped me that money has helped me meet, along with 2 good videos, the payout threshold already for May. So I know that I'm going to earn and will receive a payment from YouTube in May, and that's with a whole 20 days left of the month, which in theory is at least another 10 videos if it's a video every other day, or maybe a video a day. So I know I'm on my way to doing that. I know as well that I've got the money that I can carry over if I'm really good and I don't touch it. And so I'm looking positive. The thing is, obviously, that £500 per month may not be a sustainable reoccurring form of income, and that's what I need to tweak and look at. Further to, so we move towards the end of the quarter, so May being the middle, to try and increase this to a stable, emphasis on the stable. It can't just be a flash in the pan. It can't be dependent on Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi and super thanks and things like that. Those are extra that contribute towards the YouTube amount, but I can't sit there and go, because people were generous in April, they will therefore be generous in May, because that's an assumption I don't want to bring in. it is on me to deliver good content and hopefully hit £100 a month through there. So I can say that of this stable amount, £50 or £25 a week is YouTube and X amount of this is this. Increasing to a stable £200 a week, so an average £800 to £1,000, depending on whether it is a 4 or 5 week month. Across all additional income options needs to be in place, I think, by the end of June. I think this is going to come about through potentially that reselling element that I have talked about before. The difficulty at the minute is that I need to take my earnings in their entirety to meet that income gap. So I can't necessarily take and reinvest everything that I'm making to kind of grow it. In an ideal situation, what needs to happen is that if I can, I take 20 of the £100 of stuff that I've sold. If I can, is I take that 20 and can I double it to 35 or 40? And can I then take that 40 and can I grow that to 70 or 80? And then so on and so forth. We'll see. Buying and selling online and identifying and product knowledge and stuff like that is all an element I have because of my past. My past kind of working life. I've spent time in retail. I've spent time running an online business. I've spent time trying to tracking things down. You spend a lot of time as a costume designer in and out of places trying to find and source unusual things because the internet is not always the best place to find things. I costumed many things out of charity shops and tip stores and stuff. So I know what I can look for. It's just at the minute, whereas some people would kind of start by selling through their house belongings and giving that their float to start, I kind of need to take that float to cover the normal bills. But I think that is a way of generating that extra income supplemented by existing stock from a previous business life that I need to make up and sell to go in there. What I would like to do is put myself in a position where, despite the chaos that I'm currently in, I can cover my income shortfall using this structure throughout Q2 to put myself in a position in Q3 where actually I can start that debt payoff focus, so that instead of feeling like I'm chasing my tail and I am losing ground and I'm trying to climb a mountain that is just growing in front of me and I can't get there any faster, if I can try and get myself in the mindset of I'm only a quarter behind where I wanted to be, and actually here's something sustainable and focused that I've built to go in the background, and that's going to help me long term, I will feel slightly, through gritted teeth, more satisfied than I currently do with my current scenario, because it's a bit like the blind leading the blind at the minute, and I am the blind leading the blind because I'm just going all in and kind of going, I'll sell this and I'll get rid of this and I'll get rid of that, and the immediate focus is this week or today or this bill or this thing, and I'm having to kind of sit there like I did last video and actually kind of cast my eye over actually how long could this go on for and what am I going to do about it. There is obviously a massive unknown in all of this, and that does bring me round to the rental inspection today. Bowie made himself scarce, which was wonderful. And I can't call the outcome. I feel... Okay. We're here. Rental inspection has done. I have to find out by here. My contract technically runs out here and a new one is meant to start here. What I think has happened and what I think will happen is I will not possibly find out what is going to occur until Monday or Tuesday. The good news is that I'm going to keep myself busy and distracted because I have a friend staying over on here on the Saturday to come and do a car boot with me on the Sunday, and then I may indulge myself and take a little bit of my hopeful potential car boot earnings and go buy myself a coffee with this friend and actually go for a coffee. Because if you want a sign that I'm being very good financially, when I do my weekly recap, you will see how little of my own spending money I've spent, which is an amazing achievement within itself. So that just tells you stuff's going on. But before I get sidetracked, let's get back to it. And I've also got to get sorted for the car boot and go all in here. And I am going to go all in because I don't think I'm going to find... If I find out tomorrow, I will be amazed. And here is why. Having been with this letting agency who looks after the property with the same letting agent since I moved in, I was able to have a really, really good chat with him about the rental market and the sales market within my area. We kind of touched on the fact that like landlords who are deriving an income from part rental income and part stocks and shares and part pensions potentially will have had a major shake up this weekend, or this week, shall we say, because of tariffs to that side of their income, if that's where they have derived some of it. And we also talked about kind of savings and interest rates. So it was a really good discussion to be had. In terms of me as a tenant, the house is in fantastic property. He was in fantastic condition. He was really pleased with how we looked after the property, with how I've looked after the property. Like my dad comes over and does the garden. So I was talking him through my dad's plans for that and what he wants to do. I talked about my own intentions, the fact that case in point, the carpet into both of the bedrooms is incredibly worn and was noticed as being very, very worn when I moved in and in need of replacement, and that was 5 years ago. And if I tell you I have been on my hands and knees scraping it with a carpet scraper because it no longer picks up with a hoover. And I kind of said, look, in the summer, emphasis on in the summer, is there a way that I could potentially do some cosmetic changes? Could I put a light colour on the wall, something non-offensive? And if the landlord doesn't want to pay to replace the carpet, but I put a neutral kind of something down, would that be acceptable? I talked about those options. I kind of reinforced the fact that as a teacher, there are jobs for me. My income is going to grow as I progress through my teaching career. Fingers crossed. Doing all of the tick box stuff, and also indicated as well, I asked questions about rental prices for my area. We're kind of about right for what I have. I need to caveat that by saying that I'm in an incredibly high rental area and cost of renting. And I know a couple of you rightfully mentioned in the comments, looking to rent somewhere cheaper. I'm as cheap as it gets, sadly. What I pay now would get me a 1-bed flat. You're talking £700 for a shared room, as in a room in a shared house. £950 for a 1-bed flat. So the fact that I have been a tenant for 5 years means that my rent has been able to kind of stay and not grow exponentially in that time because I've been in for 5 years. Whereas the market around me has shot up in price. In terms of taking on a lodger or a house mate, that would have to be in place by next week to sign the new tenancy agreement with me, and I am prohibited from taking on a lodger under the terms of my contract. So it would have to be a second person coming onto the tenancy. It would have to be someone that I have a relationship with or am in a relationship with, and has the thought cross my mind, should I get on some dating apps and find myself a significant other to split rent with? Not right now. But that would have to be in place by here. And they wouldn't, again, halfway through the contract, even if it was a significant other and it occurs in, say, 3 months' time, we would have to wait to add them to the tenancy. to go through that process. Or it would be a completely new tenancy agreement with potentially new increased costs because of another person living there. Yes, that's also written into my contract. So it would require a significant move, multiple hours away, for me to tap into cheaper costs. And sadly, not sadly, because I'm not a priority, a single female is not a priority in terms of receiving allocated housing from the social sector or the council tenant sector. I left the conversation feeling like if there was a rent increase, if a rent increase was going to happen, it would be small, maybe £25 or £50 a month, or that the landlord would sell the property. I didn't feel like and again, I could be completely wrong, completely off on all of my assumptions. I don't feel like I'm facing a skyrocketing rent of an additional £200, £250 a month. I don't, however, feel very reassured that the landlord won't look at the option of selling and cashing in on his asset. I was reassured by the letting agent that as a tenant in good standing, they really want to keep me and would look to move me into one of their other properties. There are practical issues there, though. I wouldn't pass a credit check. My guarantor, who has been the guarantor on my house, is retired. So I wouldn't have a guarantor going forward on a new property, and with the costs of rents being what they are, for me to do a move over to a new to market property, I wouldn't pass the affordability check, let alone the credit check. And then I'm potentially in the situation of having to pay for like basically rent a guarantor, which is a cost each month I can't have on top of an additional amount per month. So the same objections to being moved over, as lovely as it is that I have a letting agency that wants to keep me as a tenant, the same kind of issues do still apply. And health-wise and school-wise and employment-wise, I don't know if I'm going to be able to this year move schools and go to a completely new area to take advantage of that cheaper costs. We will need to see what happens. Like I said, the urge to get in a van and drive off into the hills and find a shack somewhere is still very strong. I know that costs more money than moving house, but it's a strong desire, and I can say that that's a strong desire as I sit here with arms folded. I'm not at the point where I have to sell the Doc Martens. The thought did cross my mind. I did sell a couple of kind of rare costume books from my previous working days, which are, if I ever choose to rebuy them, will cost me 3 figures to replace, but they have netted me a good boost ahead of this weekend and was worth doing. They're going to someone who appreciates them. I'm going to leave it there before we run to 30 minutes. I'm aware that I've kind of covered 2 things. So we've covered my Q2 goals, deriving and increasing and building towards a sustainable weekly income of £200 per week over stages. Thank you, those of you in the comments who are like, but yes, we're going to do it in stages. Come on, I'm not going to run up the mountain just yet. I'd have an asthma attack like 2 steps in. And here's how the rental inspection went. Landlord was happy, or the letting agent was happy with the condition of the house. It was all good, but I don't feel like, I think I can rule out a substantial rent increase. I don't think I can rule out the property being sold. And that's the big one. I'm going to love you and leave you and see you there. I'm going to try and get a video out for you guys tomorrow as well, because I've got a couple of things that I need to kind of cover before we get too late into April. So I will hopefully see you then. If there's not a video released tomorrow, it will just be a health medication thing, basically flattening me. I'm going to love you and leave you. I hope you have a fantastic budgeting week wherever you are in the world. And thank you once again so much for all of your wonderful support, donations, purchases. It means a lot. Those links are in the description as per usual. But as always, just watching and enjoying the video is superb. Bye-bye for now.